Uh-oh, don't say anything or give me eye rolls because you are on camera. You are recorded. It is going to be saved forever. So again, welcome everybody to the Virtual Presentation Friday. I'm really looking forward to today. As you all know, I am Micah Hunt, the host with the most of this wonderful weekly meeting and discussion, providing resources, education, information, and just assistance to us in the professional world to learn about new innovative ways and better ways to take care of ourselves and be better with the communities that we work in, and just to stay connected. That's the main part that I love about this. The new connections that happen after these calls is always amazing. So again, you are muted and we're recording. And just a reminder, if you do not tell me that you are watching today, I need to know that you are, because you will not get the email for CEUs. And we have had some technical difficulties with people chiming in afterwards and saying that they needed the CEUs, but I did not have them on the list. So if you're not on that list, you ain't getting the CEUs. So make sure you're on that list. So please make sure you text me or email me and let me know that you want those CEUs. Otherwise, you will not get them. With that, I'm going to go into our sponsor, our exclusive sponsor for this event that helped this happen, JP Carlton with Carlton Building Services. JP?
Hey everyone, my name is JP. I'm with Carlton Building Services. We are a healthcare contractor that specializes in retirement communities. First off, I want to thank Micah and Lucas for participating in today's virtual presentation. As I know, we're all dealing with COVID. It's affected many communities across the country, and it's really a hard endeavor to maintain everyday regular life, not only with construction. First off, when I found out Lucas was giving a presentation, I was like, man, there's another one in the industry that actually takes pride in what we do. So first off, shout out to Lucas. As a contractor, I know how difficult it can be for our customers to find vendors that are already set up for COVID. Well, other than Lucas and myself, there's not many of us out there. Here at Carlton Building Services, we've been using dustless systems for well over 2 years now that have actually helped improve the lives and communities around us for a lot of our seniors. These systems have been used in major paint and drywall repairs all the way to full building renovations. And in fact, we've had the ability to work right next with a senior next to us, never ever knowing any different. So we're proud that Lucas is participating, and we are so excited to see it. And if anyone ever needs anything, more than happy, just reach out to help you with any construction, repairs, or maintenance projects out there.
Awesome. Thank you, JP, so much for you being a sponsor for this event. I'm really grateful of it. So, moment of the hour. I'm really looking forward to this presentation. I've known Lucas McCurdy virtually and on LinkedIn for many, many years, and I've been a follower of his for a long time. He is known actually as the senior living fan. So I'm excited to have him speak with us today. Lucas McCurdy, I'm gonna let you take the floor, sir, and I'm gonna mute myself.
Thanks, Micah, and thanks, JP, for inviting me here. JP, it's great to see another general contractor that's passionate about making positive impacts around the lives of older adults in their communities. And that's really what drives me. You know, I call myself the senior living fan for several reasons, mainly because I did work in other spaces. I grew up in the construction industry and particularly involved around multifamily, hospitality, and restaurants, but never really generated a sincere passion around those spaces. I wanted to do good work, but I had a deep longing to want to impact lives in a different and a bigger way. I had the opportunity to do some work in senior living, and it was like the clouds parted and everything just became more clear to me. And I said, wow, look at these people that are doing this work. Wow, I had no idea. I came in with probably what the general public population would think about. I was intimidated. I didn't know what I was going to encounter coming into the communities. And once I started to meet the people and understand what was taking place, I was blown away by the love stories, by the beauty, by the sacrifice, and by the level of care that was being given to our older adults. And I said, this is what I want to do. And what can I do? How can I map my actions to make a greater impact in this space? How can I tell my story to other people so that they know how great the senior living industry is and how great the people are in this business? And so, fortunate for me, I'm very involved in the conference sector on a national level. I had the ability to meet a guy named Joshua Crisp. We became very close friends in a very short amount of time, and our visions and goals really aligned. And we started to have a bigger conversation. We said, look, we go to these conferences, we get all of this information. They're very expensive. It takes a lot, time to do this, but not everybody can come. How can we take this information and bring it back to a bigger platform to help people learn, grow, be educated, be influenced, and be informed? And so we formed something called Bridge the Gap, the Senior Living Podcast, and we're in our 3rd season on that, and it has been an amazing passion project for us to bring on guests, highlight issues, and talk about the things that are important to senior living. I've been blown away personally by the amount of information that I've learned. I joke with people and say that I've had a front row seat to get a free master's degree in senior living because I've been privy to all of these conversations. Over 150 interviews later, now in season 3, we continue to move forward, even in a remote way. We did all of our episodes face-to-face at the conferences, which have been postponed or canceled for now. So we're able to do things virtually like this. So that's been very fun. Last year, I took a big leap of faith and was able to start the Bridge Group construction out of Dallas, Texas, 100% focused on open and operating communities here in Texas for construction renovation, just like JP. So that's been a passion of mine to go into. Okay, so there's a little bit of my background. Let's talk about the topic that we're going to hit today, which is infection control in senior living, ingredients for success. So there's a number of things that are involved here. JP mentioned, dustless construction, or, minimizing the impact through using air scrubbers with HEPA filter ventilation, and, utilizing, different barriers for infection control. One of the things when COVID hit, I also have a background in remediation and disaster reconstruction. So I've done asbestos abatement. I've done a lot of mold remediation and things like that. So when COVID hit, I started to immediately reach out to the contacts that I have in the industrial hygienist profession. And I said, what do we need to get ready for as COVID starts to make its way through these communities? How can we come in alongside them and help them with this? Because my fear is that every carpet cleaner in America is all of a sudden going to be a virus infection control expert. Nothing against carpet cleaners, but I'll just tell you, it doesn't take a lot to go out and buy a little bit of equipment and some disinfectant, and then all of a sudden charge people a lot of money and say that you're going to, kill COVID in their community. And so I went through my roster of connections and spent a lot of time researching, number one, which products out there are actually effective in eliminating COVID in a community, on surfaces, in the air, et cetera, et cetera. What are those products? Okay. And then secondly, what out of those product lists are actually safe to use around immunocompromised people like our older adults? The last thing you want to do is come in and use harsh chemicals in the environments that they live in their home, because there could be side effects for obvious reasons. So I spent a lot of time doing that and partnering with people here in the state of Texas, and we have actually done a number of cleanings inside communities that have had positive COVID tests. So there's a couple of things that you need to know and ask about if you're going to bring in a cleaning professional into your community. If you do have COVID, or there's two things. You can do a proactive cleaning and you can do a reactive cleaning, right? Proactive is just, we don't have COVID, but we'd like to have a professional clean in our community, or we do have COVID positive or have had COVID positive and we want to come in and have a professional cleaning. So you want to make sure that the products that they're using, to my earlier point, are safe for older adults. There is a number of products out there that are plant-based, that are botanical, that are on what's called the EPA N list. EPA N list. And this is the new list that has been generated that are centered around SARS and COVID. Now, there are products that kill COVID that are not on that list. It is very expensive to get on that list. And so you'll see the big companies and stuff like that have been able to, shell out the $500,000, $1 million to even go through the process of getting on that list. So there are a number of products that you want to look at, and I can recommend some either online or offline later. Then number two, application. How is this product going to be applied inside my community? So I would say that there's two things that you want to consider. You want to consider electrostatic spray. So not all cleaning products are even geared to be run through an electrostatic sprayer, but that is the most effective way to come in and clean a community. What essentially an electrostatic sprayer does is it electrically charges the particles as they come out. And so you can Google this or watch on YouTube. They have these videos of like a test run on an apple. So if you take a spray bottle or something and you spray the front of an apple, you're only going to cover the front of that apple. If you use an electrostatic sprayer, you can actually spray the front of that apple and it's going to cover the sides and the back, because it's basically magnetizing the particles as they wrap around these things. And so you come in with these industrial tools and you do this electrostatic spraying. You can go on my website or my YouTube page. I've got videos of us actually doing this, and you can see what I'm talking about. So that's the other thing. And then you can also consider a wipe down. So those are some of the main things that we'll talk about there. And I know we're going to go to a Q&A, so be thinking of your questions surrounding this, but I'm going to go ahead and move on to another topic here, which is HVAC. So HVAC, there's... the problem or the challenge with COVID is it seems like that there is a ton of misinformation. You hear one thing from one side, it's not airborne, it's surface. And then the next week you hear, no, it's not surfaces, it's airborne. Candidly, I don't even know at this point. So I can't, I guess, unravel that for you. But we do know that there is an airborne aspect to this, and the actual, so COVID is very, very small. They measure it in microns, or it's 0.1 micron. And so it can be distributed through the air. And if you have a ventilation system, it's something that it should be considered, especially legacy properties, that were built in the 90s or 2000s. You've got probably some ventilation issues to begin with. There's a couple of things that you may want to consider, and this is something that I would say these are not silver bullets. This does not solve all of your problems. When it comes to COVID, you're going to want to have layers and layers and layers of protocol to help you navigate your infection control. There's two things: UV light and plasma tubes. So these can be installed in the air handlers for where your makeup air comes in, and it can act as a way to kill, or kill's not the correct word for viruses, but it's the simplest term that I could use. So I'm personally not 100% sold on these two things, but they are what I would consider an arrow in your quiver. You have to consider the cost. You know, there's expenses that these run, and so that's something that you need to think about. And then I mentioned an industrial hygienist before. I would highly recommend you, wherever you are in Virginia or the East Coast, is that you partner with a company that offers industrial hygiene or industrial hygienist as a third-party oversight, especially if you have positive COVID in your building. It can get expensive. It's something you definitely need to look at, but I think it's something to definitely consider. Okay. Now let's talk about renovation and repairs. And, you know, this is JP's core business, my core business. So we were shut down here in Texas for about 4 months. And one of the ways I was able to restart some of my jobs and start new jobs was because of my safety protocols and procedures that I put into place. So each job, we utilize these air scrubbers that JP mentioned. We utilize containment barriers around all of our construction projects. And more importantly than that is phasing of the project. This is the most important aspect of doing a renovation inside an operating community. And one thing I've noticed right now is, you know, it is, you know, a risk to bring in people from the outside to your community for obvious reasons. With that being said, if you have the right partners and the right vendors and have the right protocols and the right screening, now has never been a better time to do some of these projects in your community, because the spaces are not being utilized like they were before. One example is a project that I'm doing here in Dallas. We had scheduled previously, our schedule was supposed to run for 5 months on this project. I was able to cut 1.5 months off of my total schedule because the property is not being, these spaces are not occupied. And so we're able to move quicker through the community. Things like dining rooms, things like lobbies, things like living rooms, and these other areas, activity rooms and things like that, that typically it would take a long time to work through these areas because they still need to be used. They're occupied. But in this instance, they're not. And so we're able to actually cut a lot of time off. And we're about to reopen their lobby and dining room. And it's perfect timing because it's coming to the point where they're ready to actually start open up the community to these spaces. So that's something to consider. Last thing, and then we'll go to Q&A. There's 2 things out of all of this information. COVID is as overwhelming as as anything, and can be very, very frustrating, and you have to deal with so much already. Here's the 2 things that I think could solve a ton of problems, go a long way to your own autonomy and your own infection control in your community. And it goes back to what I was talking about with the cleaner and the electrostatic sprayer. If you can arm your community with a cleaner that has been proven to neutralize COVID, and arm your community with an electrostatic sprayer, I think that you would be 90% there. I would say, I would be so bold to say that with those 2 things alone, you would be well on your way to being feeling very confident that you are doing what is necessary to fortify and keep your residents and staff safe. The one cleaner that I am very, very, very big on is something called hypochlorous acid. Hypochlorous acid. So Google this. I've been personally using hypochlorous acid in my own home for the past 3 years. I have a special needs child that cannot be around chemicals. And for anybody that has family members with disabilities or special needs, you'll know that if you're the parents or the relatives of this, you will stop at nothing to make sure that their care is as good as it can be. And so thankfully to my wife, she never stops trying to advocate for his health. And we were able to run across this product, hypochlorous acid. So it's also known as electrolyzed water. It is 80 times more effective than bleach, and you can spray it on your skin, you can spray it in your mouth, you can spray it on your face, and it is on the EPA N list for killing SARS-CoV. It's fantastic. We spray it on everything. I take it with me to work. We spray ourselves down when we come back from the grocery store. It's phenomenal. And it is basically a process, and we make it in our house. That's the thing, is that you can't buy this in the stores because it has a shelf life. It is water and salt that's put through a generator that creates hypochlorous acid. And eventually, if you left it in the bottle and left it on the shelf, after a certain amount of time, it just turns back into water. So that's why you don't buy it at the grocery stores. You have to actually make it yourself. There's a couple of commercial companies in the United States that offer this. So they basically, you set up a generator in your community and you make it on your own. One company I would highly recommend out of Florida is called Viking Pure. I would recommend that you look into that. And the reason I like them above the others is because some of the products have a salty byproduct to it, and you don't want to use a solution that has salt in it because it can be corrosive to different elements inside your community. They have a proprietary system that eliminates the salt residue, and so I've been very impressed with them. Okay, so with that being said, I've done a lot of talking. I would love to get some feedback and open it up to discussion before everybody's eyes roll back into their head. Micah, let's turn it back.
Yeah, there's two questions that have come in the chat so far, and it's one's from Susan Nail. How effective are the disinfectant misters?
Disinfectant misters. So I'm trying to think, she may need to clarify what a mister is. When I think mister, I'm thinking like diffusers for like essential oils and things like that. Am I on the right track?
Susan Nail, you can unmute yourself. I'm trying to find you. There you are. I've asked to unmute you. So if you want to clarify, or if you want to clarify in the chat, that would be fine too. Just give us a little bit more clarification on what you're asking. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, look, a disinfectant mister, yes, I would, if I'm just kind of reading between the lines, it sounds like there may be some restrictions to that. I'm not totally familiar with that. The key is that you're going to want to have full coverage in the areas that you're trying to disinfect, which is why I'm so big on electrostatic sprayers, is because it's kind of goof proof. An electrostatic sprayer is the simplest broad paintbrush solution, and you can assure yourself that you're getting proper coverage in areas that you're not even able to access. So that's why I recommend that.
Okay, and then Judy Hackler had a question. What can you share about surface testing, accuracy, and reliability?
Okay, so it's getting better, but I'm still not totally sold on that. And again, there's new information about surface testing that comes out every single day. And so I may not be the most up to date on it. I know there's an operator out of the Northeast that has used this as their central protocol for all of their communities. They've been champions of the surface testing. I know that it can be very expensive. And again, here's what I would say about surface testing is that it's not going to be your end all. It's not the 100% thing, because it's only going to test the surface area that you're testing. Of course, yes, you're going to test multiple areas in the building, and we're very familiar with this because of mold remediations and like hurricanes and disasters that involve Category 3 water, is that it's helpful to the overall picture, but it's only indicative of that one simple or that one small spot that you're testing. So if you test there and it says that you don't have COVID, it doesn't mean that you don't have it 1 feet over or at the other corner of your building. So I'm personally not completely sold on that, but I'm also not the authority on it.
And then Susan Nail reiterated, it's a reservoir on wheels with a wand that you can move around.
Okay. So that sounds similar to like a ULV fogger or a electrostatic sprayer. It sounds like it's just a more, I guess, simpler solution. I would say that, yes, it's going to help you with coverage, but that would not be where I would invest my money. I would go all the way to the electrostatic sprayer. You're going to spend more money, but I think you're going to waste your time with the misters.
Fair enough. And then Evelyn said, do you spray the hypochlorous question mark, I hope I'm saying that right, acid with the electrostatic sprayer?
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. And so I think that if you're able to equip your community with a hypochlorous acid generator and make the solution yourself and apply it with an electrostatic sprayer, that is it. I think that's what you need.
And then another question, if the hypochlorous is homemade, where can I find the recipe and how long will it last?
Sure. Well, it depends on the level of strength that it's made, and there's different test strips to show you the how strong the solution you have made. At home, we use just kind of a countertop thing. If you can picture, like a kettle, like a water boiling kettle, something like that. I'm trying to think of the name. You need to Google it. I think it's Eco Safe or something like that. I'll find it, Micah, and follow back up with you. That's what we use for our home solution, and you're able to make varying degrees of power, so to speak, because you can run it through several times through the same generating process. Now, I still love it, but there is a salt residue with it. You do not eliminate all of the salt, so there is a little bit of a salty residue. So you have to be careful. You're not going to want to spray it on certain metals or fabrics or something like that. The commercial systems, again, they're much more robust. So they have different ways of doing that, and that's why this Viking Pure company that I've found and connected with, their proprietary method has eliminated that salt residue.
And just a reminder, I have another question, but just to remind everybody that when I send my email out, you will have Lucas's email. So Lucas, I'm gonna put you on the spot. So if you have more questions and want to follow up with Lucas, you'll have his email in that email following this call. So when you see my email, then you can follow up with Lucas, and he'll be happy to share and give you some more tidbits on a one-to-one basis. But the other question we had for you, Lucas, is what type of electrostatic sprayer do you recommend?
Yeah, so it's been very difficult to get your hands on electrostatic sprayers. And if you Google electrostatic sprayers, there's a couple of handheld or cordless ones. You'll see one it's a very distinct green color. I've heard very mixed reviews on that one. There is a company actually out of Fort Worth here called eMist. eMist is a company, and I recently helped an operator here in Texas secure 30 electrostatic sprayers to go into 30 different nursing homes, skilled nursing here in Texas. And I purchased a number of them myself. So this is actually something we use on our projects. And I'm not able to use hypochlorous acid necessarily. I can make it at my house and then take it to the job site, which I do in our spray bottles. But there's another product that I use that I'm able to procure that's more of a botanical type products that has no side effects that we use for the larger when I need to cover tens of thousands of square feet for cleaning coverage. And so this is called eMist. Now, I will tell you, I have had quite a few problems with the nozzles on these eMist sprayers. For some reason, there's been some sort of a backup or whatever takes place. It's not allowing the spray to come out. And I'm talking about their cordless. So it's called the 360 handheld. But to their credit, they have solved the problem with a service repair every time that it has come up. So they email a FedEx label, slap it on the box, send it back, and in about 2 to 3 days, they return it to you, and it's working. So they have been responsive for the repairs, but I will say out of all 30 of these handheld sprayers, I would say probably about 8 to 10 of them have had issues with spraying, but they have resolved it.
And then Cheryl Slavinsky said she just Googled and found Clorox Total 360 System electrostatic sprayer. Yep. Anyone know anything about this?
Yeah, so that's obviously with the Clorox company. That I do know a couple of operators that have purchased that system. It is hypochlorous acid based. I don't have any contacts with that company. I've not spoken with them, but I do know of a couple of operators that are using that. So it's definitely something to look into.
Awesome. And then JP asked, is there any type of training that you recommend for the maintenance teams at their communities?
Yeah, you know, and that's the reason why I go with these recommendations on the hypochlorous acid or the botanical based cleaners and these electrostatic sprayers, is because the training is about 5 minutes. Anybody can do this. That's why I recommend these means and methods, is because it's so simple.
Now, I have a question for you, and while everybody's still thinking and taking everything in, so you specialize in this in Texas. JP specialized this in Virginia, but I know there's people listening from Illinois and other parts across the country. How would you advise them to find a company that has maybe not a niche, but has a passion and a desire to help communities? How can they best navigate that, or Google, or how would you recommend them finding somebody that can do what you're doing, what JP's doing in other parts of the country?
That's a great question, and I would say that it's because of that question. I can't speak for JP, but I think he probably aligns with me. What I would say is that that's the reason why I started this company, is because there isn't companies that do this. It's when I looked at my competition and I looked at the space, you as operators, you're forced to go to the commercial general contracting world. And, my projects, they range from, 100,000 to 3 million. Well, in the renovation world, it's job to job. They're roaming. They're doing retail. They're doing, a bank. They're doing a fast food restaurant. They're doing a hotel. They're doing an apartment complex, and they just got to roam from job to job to job. It's a very difficult space to succeed in. So guys like me and JP, we've just made a distinction and say we're going to hyper focus and be very specialized and skilled in this area. And, I've pushed all the chips in on this. It's got to work. I got to make it work, but it's really the only thing I want to do. I didn't open a construction company just to be a contractor. I opened a construction company so that I can work in senior living. And there's just not very many people out there like that. Now, there's a lot of good builders. There's a lot of good contractors out there. And I think that you may just have to coach them a little bit ahead of time to say, like, look, you're walking into a community with older adults and you're going to have to perform and act differently. And so you just may have to teach and train them a little bit. So a long answer to a short question, here's what I would say, is interview. Do an interview. Really talk to the different people in your marketplace, and make your distinction from there.
Now, hold on, real quick, JP, I know you came unmuted, so I'll get you in just a minute. So before we go to JP, for people that are interviewing, what are some key questions you would recommend asking, like, for those kind of, needs of infection control in a community? So like, you're talking about electro sprayers. Is that something that people should be asking? These community representatives that are on this call should be asking, like, what key components should they be asking to know if they're really meaning what they're doing, or if they're even prepared to do what they need to do?
Yeah, well, I think you've hit it. And so you need to ask the question. I would say for people to have electrostatic sprayers, you're not going to find it. General contractors don't have them. They're very hard to get, number one. Now, the market's open back up. They're much more easier to get now. But you just need to ask these questions. Just do a discovery. Ask the questions and try to find out who it is. And then, look, they're probably not going to know all these answers. But look for the contractor that has a level of curiosity to want to know more. If you can find a contractor that doesn't just write this off and move on and think, and this is part of the reason why general contractors in the commercial space don't specialize in this type of work, is because it's hard. It's complicated. It's much easier to go and do a tenant build out in a retail plaza. You can spit on the ground and curse and leave your junk everywhere and your tools out. You don't have to worry about what's going on. But work with a contractor that has curiosity here to want to learn more, because for me as a contractor, when I first started in senior living, I can't even tell you the mistakes that were made because I had no idea. And the thing is that I learned. I moved from there to want to learn more about the business. But I'll tell you, the first jobs that I did were horrific. We had no clue what were going on. Now, that was years ago. I'm talking, 2006, 2007. Today is totally different. But, there was a time in my career that I didn't know about senior living. So find a guy or a girl that is curious.
JP?
So I would say, because I also don't just work in retirement communities, I also work in a lot of dialysis centers. But a lot of the nuances are exactly the same. And I think Lucas would agree with me. And especially with COVID, it's put a major strain on, are we, as contractors, are we doing the right thing? And for both Lucas and I can certainly agree that we've actually been 10 steps ahead, well beyond COVID. So there's a couple things that do come to mind for me is, I would certainly ask, how are you going to keep my area clean while you're working? Does that mean we shut down an area, or do we leave it open? Because in some hallways, you can't shut it down. Sometimes it means you have to work nights and other things. And to Lucas's point, he mentioned earlier, air quality. How are you maintaining air quality? Now, Lucas and I both utilize air scrubbers, and I'm sure Lucas also used vacuum-assisted sanders and other methods. So how are they maintaining air quality? And also, and then finally, part of it also has to be your team, your on-site team, as to using electrostatic sprayers. Most of the communities that I work with already have electrostatic sprayers, which is fantastic. Again, most contractors don't. But those are the three things: cleanliness, keeping the job site clean, same thing, air quality control, and electrostatic sprayers. Those are probably the three big ones for me. And Lucas, if there's any other things that I missed, feel free and let me know.
Yeah, simple things that the executive directors and administrators are going to know, like, hey guys, you can't string your extension cords across the corridor. Guys, you can't leave your paint buckets out. You can't leave your tools out. Don't leave your hammers and your saws out. And then, memory care has a whole nother thing to it. That's hyper specialized. You can't do any of those things there. So, just asking them those things and making sure that you got to get their buy-in, that they're going to monitor that. And then here's another one that just came to mind: supervision. It's very common in the commercial space for them not to have a superintendent or a project manager full-time on the job because this is the only thing that we do. Our superintendents, our project managers are full-time on the job. They are there the entire project while work is going on. So that's crucial. You need to ask them about that up front.
Awesome. This is great information. I don't know about anybody else, but I've just had my mind just like, whoa, there's so much more that I did not know. Before we start coming to a close, does anybody else have any other questions they'd like to share or ask while we have an expert ×2 here with us at all? Raise your hand or chat. Just a reminder, those of you that are on the landline, please email me that you are here, so you can get the email after this call for your CEU credit and get credit for attending today. Okay, does nobody else? Oh, here we go. Are the contractors doing COVID testing prior to entering long-term care communities?
No, I've not done that. Again, there's a pretty significant cost associated with that. Certainly, we're doing interviews and discovery with the community to say, hey, do you have any positive COVID in your building? Have you had positive COVID in your building? And then we're utilizing our protocols, hand washing, sanitizing. On site we have sanitizers, we've got cleaning, we've got gloves, we've got masks. We have our electrostatic sprayers with the disinfectants. We have the HEPA filters. We've got, the air scrubbers, all that kind of stuff. So, but we're not doing testing beforehand. If an operator wanted me to do that, we could certainly price it out and have that done. But then again, I still think that that's more like a Swiss cheese approach. You're not going to be able to test everywhere and fully assure that there's not COVID in the building.
I hope that answers the question, Judy. Otherwise, we've had a lot of comments saying very informative, very informative. Thank you so much. So really grateful for Lucas joining us today. If there are no more questions, I'm going to stop recording.